So Regal is telling Shane McMahon, "Hey, I understand it's going to be a WCW show, but that doesn't mean you have to be here. So I'm going to bring security out, and we're going to escort you out of the building back to your hotel." And
Because
Shane's acting like, "Well, that's fine. You know, I'm not an egomaniac. I don't have to be around the wrestlers."
and Regal is an authority figure for Raw, correct?
He's the commissioner for Raw. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And coming up next is the first ever WCW match on WWF television. It's Booker T versus Buff Bagwell. Did you ever see this? Do you remember ever watching this?
The match?
Yeah.
I watched it live.
But you haven't seen it since that.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
And this is a little inside baseball, Conrad. So I'm a young pup, 93, get to the WWF, knew Sean from the territories, knew a couple of guys. Yeah, I knew more than a couple of guys. But anyway, I knew what I didn't know, that I'm not going to work like I did in Tennessee at WWF because I had watched enough and understood that. So I immersed myself in Scott Hall. God rest his soul, but God bless him. Scott and Sean, probably the two biggest that really helped me out. Mike Rotundo, Mr. Fuji. I could name bits and pieces of different guys, but I soaked it up. But understanding how to work the WWF style, I knew without question Buff did not know how to work that style because I'd worked with him at WCW, watched him, worked with him multiple times. It is not the same. You're playing ball different. It's on defense. In basketball, you play a zone and a man-to-man. Oh, you're both playing defense. No, the rules are different. I don't know if I'm giving better analogies, but it's just a different mindset. And Booker hadn't been there. Neither one of them been there. I kind of remember, well, I vividly remember thinking, are they going to work WCW style? If they do, they're cooked. They are cooked out of the gate.
What if you had to break it down, hallmarks of a WWF match versus a WCW match, because when you say a WCW style, I'm sure a lot of our listeners' ears went right up.
More wrestling high spots. Oh man, let me think. The timing, the pacing, the heat's different. The cadence is different. And this may be too inside baseball, and it may not always be apples to apples. There may be, oh, well, they do that in both companies. And I would say, yes, you're right. But if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. I hate to say it that simple, but there is without question, there is a difference in when the comeback is blown and the progression of false finishes. There's a definite WWF style, much more storytelling and pauses and let this sink in. And, I'm trying to think of different examples, but you got to let things breathe and let some drama build. The simple fact of when it's time to go home before the comeback and you do some type of a double down, both guys kind of got to lay still and bring the people into your emotion as opposed to going right into the comeback. Little nuances, Conrad, little nuances.
Of course, we're watching Booker T in the now infamous WCW Nitro match against Buff Bagwell.
And I know we don't have the sound up, but are they booing this? I think
they're indifferent. You can see them; they're not moving. Like
they sure aren't.
No one cares, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
It's speculated in the Observer that Bischoff was contacted and told, "Hey, we want you for 2 weeks. We want you to debut in Atlanta, and then we want you to work this pay-per-view, the Invasion pay-per-view coming up on the 22nd." So he would have seemingly worked on the 9th and again on the 22nd. They wanted a singles match with him and Vince, and for Vince to eat him up. And he said, no, thanks. Not interested in that. And of course, Bischoff at the time denied, no, I was never contacted. And I'm surprised that anyone thinks that I would do that. I'm not doing that. And we know, of course, in 02, he did come back, but that wasn't, hey, why don't you come in and let us beat you and then never hear from you again? He came in as a general manager Raw, and it worked out.
Interesting. I mean, it's very interesting.
Isn't it crazy to think? And Jeff, I know there's a narrative out there, but I'm pulling for Buff Bagwell. I like Buff Bagwell.
Oh,
I think he's going to be one of the great success stories.
He's a character, man. Always has been.
You're watching his last nationally televised match right now.
No way.
That's it, man. He's 31 years old, and this is it. Is that not wild?
Wow.
I mean, think about that. This guy's been on TV at this point
12 years.
Every week for at least 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. I mean, he started WCW young.
Yeah.
Young.
And now done. Like, he is one of the greater what ifs in wrestling to me, because and I know he's had some ups and downs, and there's lots of people who've got their opinion formed on him, and I'm not trying to change your mind. But I'm just saying, the idea that dude had his last match at 31, last television match. I know he still wrestled and did a bunch of indies and blah, blah, blah.
He came in for a hiccup here and there, but I get it. He wasn't nationally televised because I don't think he was on Spike, but I got
you. He did some WWE stuff. He did some NWA stuff, but that was really the early days before it was all on fire. So this is really like his last moment in the sun. And I know he did like the XWF tapings, and I mentioned the WWA stuff. So there were opportunities, but
nationally televised.
Yeah.
I will be damned.
And by the way, it's worth mentioning, the day before this, they did this match in a WWF ring in Spokane, Washington. Nobody talks about that, but they did a house show the night before, dialed it in, and now they're doing the match here.
Booker and Buff.
And poof, it's over. Doesn't make any sense.
But those kind of little fun facts. It's not fun for Marcus, but damn, 2001.
Yeah, you want to talk about what a radical character he was.
Yes, charismatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in wrestling, people want to talk about, hey, man, we're just looking for reactions. Good or bad, just react. We need something. Bagwell, man, he had that in spades. And
a good-looking guy that you want to smack the taste out of his mouth. And when he added the top hat and coming to the airbrush deal and everything that went with it, he was easy to hate.
Yeah. Damn. It's worth mentioning the next day, because this is July 2nd at the Tacoma Dome. The next day, they're going to tape SmackDown in the same building, July 3rd. Bagwell's going to do a run-in the main event. And then 4 days later, he was supposed to wrestle in North Charleston at the Coliseum, but he's wrestling, or he's substituted in that match by Mark Jindrak. So this is it. And by the way, the now infamous, I guess, depending on who you ask, water bottle incident with him and Shane Helms was earlier in the week. So Buff Bagwell, as he's wrestled that match, no matter what you thought of the match, he did it with staples in his head. I'm just saying.
No freaking way. All this week.
All the exact same week.
And the Jindrak deal, was he done?
Yeah, I mean, this is Buff's last match. He's going to do a run-in on SmackDown the next day.
Yeah.
At the very end. And that's it. And when I say he does a run-in, I don't mean by himself. I mean like the whole WCW group comes out and he's amongst them. But he had exactly 2 matches in the WWE. A house show the day before and this. And that's it. And think about that. Booker T is going to go on to become the most decorated, most celebrated WCW star ever here in the WWF.
Yeah, 2-time Hall of Famer.
He starts a real Hall of Fame career at this point. That's after being the most decorated guy in WCW history. and they're beating his ass out of the building. They beat him up in the ring. They being Buff Bagwell, Stone Cold, and Kurt Angle. So right now, for the rest of this segment, Buff Bagwell is rubbing shoulders with Kurt Angle and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and we'll never fucking see him again. It's crazy.
I'm telling you, Conrad, this business it is so bizarre. Wow.